President, and I rise to speak to Ms Maxwell's motion. And it's interesting following the opposition and the government both kind of touting that they've done better than the other, and I'd have to say that I don't think either of them have done well in addressing the growing problems that our justice system is facing, and and preventing people entering into our justice system. I think that is where we have absolutely tragically failed our community, our young people, and even, as Mr O'Donoghue said, the parents of young people who are facing things like drug addiction. One of my advisors observed when we were looking at the Justice Party and Ms Maxwell's motion is that the Venn diagram of this motion and Reason's policy agenda is actually a circle. There's nothing outside that circle. I think we may not be aligned on the solutions to this motion. We may have different perceptions about how we might solve this, but we are very aligned that these issues need to be addressed. And we welcome this inquiry. This inquiry allows what Reason always seeks, and that is evidence-based solutions found in empirical scientific research. And as being fortunate to be the chair of this committee, the committee to which this referral is being made, I'll limit my commentary, and I also will limit it to allow others to make their comments on this. But we do need to think how we address our growing remand numbers, reduce our criminal reoffending rates, and I suspect that this inquiry will really provide us with the evidence that we need to address some of those problems. As we've heard from the previous speakers, we know remand and recidivism rates are too high. And being the fourth best in Australia doesn't even get you a medal. And it certainly isn't something that we should be proud of. And I don't think either side has got anything to be proud of. We've been talking about 44% and 43% recidivism rates. Let's just remember that's people who are back in jail within 2 years. Our actual recidivism rates are more like 60%. So most people who go to jail are going back. So if we want to stop our jail populations growing, we need to stop people going to jail. And I hope that this is some of what we will find, and the solutions and answers to that we will find during this inquiry, if it is to be supported by the House. We know that probably a large number, and I would say even the majority of those who are offending in Victoria have drug issues. But we also know that change is achievable. And if you look at our recidivism rates, if you look at our incarceration rates in Victoria, we are at 138 per 100,000 and growing. That number is escalating. But then let's look at an example, the Netherlands. Their incarceration rate is 69 per 100,000 and declining. Now, I don't think the Dutch are that different to us, but the Dutch's approach to crime and preventing crime is different. They are closing their prisons down. They are not having to put in containers to house prisoners. They are not having to build, massive new prisons in their community. They are closing them down. In fact, some of them are being used to help people in homelessness. They are repurposing their prisons, something that is kind of a distant dream for us here. But I hope that in this inquiry we will work out how to break that cycle. I'd make note that yesterday the Sentencing Council brought out their third report on the crossover kids. And some of the statistics that come out of that are not only startling but so tragic and so sad. You know, in looking at some of the figures, they will tell us that 91% of kids who come across, who enter into our justice system or rub against our justice system were known by child protection. 91%. So seriously, we can start seeing some solutions by looking at how we can help those children. We also fail to consider the effects of childhood trauma. We know that the vast 98% of the children that enter into our justice system have been victims of crime, whether that's sex abuse, whether that's neglect, whether that's any other traumatic crime against them. And this affects their development, but it also means that, you know, we know who we need to probably be wrapping our services around. Like the minute child protection has any contact with a child, that is when we should be working. We should know that if those children brush against our justice system, they will continue to come into our justice system. So if we want to reduce the numbers of prisoners we have, we need to address it at the beginning. We know there's probably 5 postcodes where most prisoners in Victoria were born. When we were doing some juvenile justice inquiries last term, we actually heard that there was a survey done on the 6 monthly checkup of babies and children in the justice system, and that the majority of them had not had their 6 monthly baby checkups. So there's some checks and balances that we can address. And you know, both listening to the government and the opposition about what they're doing, and I don't think as I said, I don't think they've got anything to be proud of. We don't fund the services that stop people from entering into our prison system. We don't fund the services that prevent people from entering into our prison system. Just last week, there was a new study by the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research, and they've been introducing an innovative program around circle sentencing. Now, this was a program that they have trialled with Aboriginal people. They found absolutely, without a doubt, lower rates of imprisonment and recidivism than Aboriginal people who were sentenced during in the more normal and traditional way. And we know the overrepresentation of our Aboriginal brothers and sisters is tragic. We know that our Aboriginal brothers and sisters are still dying in custody. 20 years after the report about deaths in custody, it is something that we should all feel some shame for. We should feel a lot of shame for. And, you know, it is happening today. It is happening, you know, this year we have seen people. We are, you know, we had a woman die with a newly born baby die in the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre this year. A baby dying. How in what we would consider a modern state can we allow that to happen? I am looking forward to this. I actually don't think that we need to amend this motion. I think this motion is far-reaching, and we will have the opportunity to consider all ranges of things. Certainly, some of the issues that Mr. O'Donoghue has mentioned in his amendments. We will certainly be looking at the costs. We will certainly be looking at what happens in our justice system, what happens in our prisons, the violence in our prisons, whether that's to the prisoners or to the staff. Those will all be things, I have no doubt, that will be raised by people as they make submissions to this inquiry. I do hope this inquiry is supported by the Chamber, and I very much look forward to working with Ms Maxwell on what I think is an incredibly important body of work for this Parliament.